All right, let's dive right into this explainer because we are looking at the genuinely mind-bending science of how your memory actually works. For the longest time, we've had this very specific, kind of comforting idea of what a memory is. But modern neuroscience, it's completely flipping that on its head. Today, we're looking at some incredible research that proves your brain is actively rewriting the truth literally right now. It's a massive discovery. I mean, we're talking about a biological mechanism that is overturning criminal trials and totally revolutionizing how we treat severe trauma. So let's get into it.
I want you to do a quick favor for me. Think of a memory right now. No, really, actually go ahead and do it. Maybe it's a childhood birthday party. Maybe it's the last time you saw someone you really love. Or hey, maybe it's literally the worst day of your life. Take just a couple of seconds and picture it. You feel pretty confident about what you remember, right? Like you can see the details, you know exactly how the whole shebang went down. Well, here's the crazy part. That exact memory, the one you just brought up, it is being rewritten right now. Wait, what? Yeah, absolutely. Neuroscientists have discovered that the specific memory you just pulled into your conscious mind is physically being altered by your brain the very second you start thinking about it. And we're not just talking about, your perspective shifting a little bit as you get older. We are talking about the actual physical structure of your brain being modified while you remember. Crazy, right? And look, this isn't just some fringe, out there psychological theory. Scientists have kind of suspected this since way back in 1968, when a psychologist named Donald Hebb noticed that memories just seem to shift over time. But the real game changer, that happened in the year 2000. A research team at NYU, led by Joseph LeDoux, ran this experiment with rats that completely changed neuroscience forever. They conditioned these rats to fear a specific sound by pairing it with a tiny shock. Then they let the rats remember that fear. But, and here's the kicker, at the exact moment the rats were remembering, the researchers injected a drug that blocked the brain from synthesizing new proteins. The result? That fear memory wasn't just like pushed down or suppressed. It was erased, completely gone. By interrupting the physical process of remembering, they proved that memories are absolutely not permanent files. Which brings us to this staggering, almost unbelievable discovery, the rebuild window. That NYU study and a bunch of research that followed told scientists that every single time, literally every time, you access a memory, your brain has to physically rebuild it from scratch. And doing that triggers a 2 to 6 hour window where the memory is totally vulnerable to change. Think about that. For 2 to 6 hours, that memory is entirely unprotected. It's malleable, it's exposed, and it is just waiting to be put back together. This completely shatters the biggest myth we have about the brain. We all love the hard drive theory. We love thinking of our brains as these giant computer hard drives where memories are just fixed, permanent files. You double-click the file, retrieve it, look at it, and put it back perfectly intact. Nope. The reality is the connection pattern theory. Memories are actually dynamic networks. When two neurons fire together over and over, the physical bridge between them gets stronger. Scientists call this long-term potentiation. So, to put it simply, your memories are these living, breathing webs of electricity and protein. They are not old PDF documents sitting in a digital filing cabinet. To really wrap our heads around this, we have to look at the exact mechanism. It happens in 3 wildly counterintuitive steps. Step 1, a cue triggers the memory. Maybe it's a familiar smell, a song on the radio, or just a passing thought. But Step 2 is where it gets kind of terrifying. The actual structural proteins that hold those synapses together literally disassemble. The physical bridge breaks down. Your memory in that exact moment goes completely offline. It technically doesn't even exist. It's just this open, super vulnerable pathway. And then comes Step 3. New proteins link up to rebuild that neural pathway completely from scratch. So here is the absolutely crucial takeaway. You do not retrieve a memory. You reconstruct it. During that protein rebuild phase in Step 3, your brain is acting like an incredibly active construction site. And whatever is going on in your environment right now, whatever intense emotion you're feeling today, whatever new information you've learned since the original event happened, all of those shiny new materials get dropped off at the construction site and magically woven right into the rebuild. So what does this actually mean for your day-to-day life? Well, frankly, it explains so much of our daily friction. Have you ever gotten into a massive argument with a friend or a sibling over exactly who said what at Thanksgiving 5 years ago? You are both 100% sure you're right, down to the exact tone of voice the person used. Well, guess what? Neither of you is lying. You're both just playing back your most recent reconstruction of that event. Or think about that core childhood story you've told, I don't know, dozens of times. Every single time you told it, at a dinner party, to a partner, you rebuilt it. It's like a photocopy of a photocopy. You introduced current emotions, you probably exaggerated the funny parts to get a laugh, and you definitely dropped some old facts. The memory you're holding onto today is just a product of the last time you told it, not the original event. And this is where the science gets genuinely alarming. The brilliant psychologist Elizabeth Loftus has spent 50 years proving exactly how vulnerable this reconstruction process actually is. In her research, she discovered that you can plant a completely false memory in someone's brain with a single leading question. She'd show people a scene and later ask, "Did you see the red car?" instead of, "Did you see a car?" And even if there was absolutely no red car to begin with, a massive portion of people would later vividly remember seeing a red car. Just that tiny, subtle suggestion during the rebuild phase made it totally real to them. The real-world consequences of this are, quite frankly, devastating. Because our brains so easily weave new information into old memories during that 2 to 6 hour window, eyewitness testimony can literally be fabricated by pure suggestion. Think about it. We use eyewitness testimony to send people to prison. But if a core memory can be rewritten by a single word from a lawyer or a cop, how reliable is that evidence, really? Innocent people can, and unfortunately have, gone to prison simply because an investigator accidentally contaminated a witness's mind during that highly vulnerable window. The witness is absolutely certain of a memory that their brain simply built from a stray cue. I know. This sounds deeply unsettling, but listen, if memories are really this unstable, it's actually the most profoundly hopeful thing neuroscience has discovered in decades. Let's contrast the grim old view of trauma with what we know today. The old view treated traumatic memories like heavy, permanent boulders. They were written in stone, impossible to move, and patients basically just had to learn to live with the crushing weight of them. But now, because of this reconsolidation process, we have the therapeutic window. The exact same vulnerability that makes a memory unreliable makes it completely malleable and wide open to healing. This mechanism is literally the foundation of modern clinical practice. Therapists are deliberately exploiting this biological loophole. The process works kind of like this. First, they activate the traumatic memory, but strictly in a super safe, controlled context. This triggers the memory and causes those structural proteins to break down. That intentionally kicks open that 2 to 6 hour therapeutic window we talked about. Then, during the absolutely crucial rebuild phase, the therapist introduces new information, specifically feelings of deep calm, grounding safety, and correction. And the results? Honestly, they are seeing unprecedented remission rates for PTSD. This is the hard biological science behind treatments you might have heard of, like EMDR, which stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, as well as reconsolidation-based therapies. The memory of the trauma gets deliberately broken down, but it gets rebuilt with those new elements of safety and calm physically woven right into the neural pathway. Doctors are seeing levels of recovery from severe trauma that they historically thought were literally impossible. It's the exact same process of memory corruption that put the red car in the witness's mind, but utilized here for an incredibly healing outcome. So let's bring this whole thing full circle. I want you to go back and remember that memory I asked you to think of at the very beginning of this explainer. You brought it to mind, right? Which means you triggered the protein breakdown. And because you've been sitting here, listening to this wild neuroscience, sitting in your current environment, your brain just finished rebuilding it. So is it a little different than it was before you started this explainer? Scientifically speaking, yes, you just altered it. Is that terrifying, or is it kind of beautiful? Because what this science ultimately proves is that no memory is a life sentence. Every single time you remember something, your brain is making a choice, conscious or not, about exactly how to weave your present into your past. The story of who you are is literally still being written in your neural pathways today. So I'm going to leave you with this thought. Knowing that your past is really just a draft that you are constantly editing, how will you choose to reconstruct your story tomorrow?